Welcome back to Morning Joe. Most governors and mayors, as we've been reporting, have shuttered the dining rooms of restaurants across the country to limit the spread of coronavirus. The move has forced restaurants, big and small, to lay off employees and to shift to takeout and delivery just to stay afloat. According to the National Restaurant Association, the industry so far has lost more than $25 billion in sales and cut more than 3 million jobs due to the coronavirus. Those numbers, of course, expected to rise as this pandemic worsens and continues. Joining us now, chef and restaurateur Guy Fieri. He is in partnership with National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation, launching a restaurant relief fund to help U.S. restaurant workers who've been financially impacted by the coronavirus. Guy, it's so great to see you. Good on you for doing this. I think any of us who has a favorite spot, a favorite diner, the kind of place you travel to, is heartbroken to walk past, see a sign up in the window that say we're closed. We hope to see you back soon. We don't know if we're going to see them back soon. We think about the waitress or the cook that we see a couple of times a week. Talk a little bit about this program and how it might help those people.
Well, all your points just hit it right on the head. I mean, it's your favorite restaurants, the places you've celebrated these milestones. It's your neighborhood joint, all of them. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of restaurants closed, millions, 3 million, upwards to 5 million of these employees without jobs. And a lot of these folks are living paycheck to paycheck. Devastating. So we partnered with the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation, awesome people, and we said, listen, let's put something together that is going to focus on the employees and how we can get them some money. And it was quick action. I mean, my attorney, Riley from Davis Wright Tremaine, he was the one that was right in the middle of it, getting everybody organized. We brought in Jock Condi from the California Restaurant Association for some support on how to do it. So the group of us really started noodling this and said, how can we get some money? And what we did is we went directly to the people that participate in the business with restaurants the most. So just last night, Coke helped push us over the $10 million mark. Uber Eats just launched this fantastic new app that you make a donation to your favorite restaurant on the app. They're going to match that and donate the money to the fund. So we are talking about big money, moving fast, $10 million so far, and going towards this. My goal is $100 million. I know it's lofty, but we got a lot of people with a lot of need. And if folks are interested about how to get involved, to donate, or to get this fund, they can go to RERF.US, Restaurant Employee Relief Fund.
And we'll make sure that's up on the bottom of the screen so folks can watch it. So if I'm a cook or I'm a waiter or, I run a restaurant, how do I access this? Do I just go direct to the website? Because there are a bunch of them watching today who I'm sure are very interested in this.
Well, you go directly to the website, and I will be honest with you, we've had a lot of attention to it from the donation side, which is awesome, and from the employee side, which is so needed. And I just say, give us a little bit of time. We've had a couple ups and downs with it, but I think we've worked out the bugs. I don't know that everybody was expecting 4 million hits in the first morning, but this is a program that is not going to just be for today. You know, we've got a lot of our partners that are committing, for instance, Discovery that I do, my shows, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and so forth. They made a commitment to say for every donation that the employees make, they will match it. And that'll go on for 60 days. So we're looking forward to seeing more of the partners that participate in the restaurant industry, more of those partners that, that really need the restaurant industry. We're looking for them to get involved. So hopefully the number will continue to grow. There'll be more money for more of these employees who really, as you can understand, across the country really need the support.
So give us a sense, Guy. I think it's important to think about who these people are, the restaurant workers who literally went from making a living to zero and worked so hard. These are long hours, long days, but their lives have come to a grinding halt. Like, what inspires you to try and get money to these people and get them the relief that they need?
Well, grinding halt is exactly what's happened. I mean, you're talking about folks that don't usually have big savings. You're talking about, people that work in the restaurant business, usually working a couple jobs. They're usually in families because the restaurant hours are so flexible that they can work a night job or an early morning job. So there's not a lot of cash reserves. And the restaurant owners themselves, I mean, this is a business where everybody likes it. Everybody wants to be in it and have a piece of one, but there's not a lot of cash reserves inside of it. So, we're talking the tip business where the cash is at hand. I think that we all kind of were in that same idea that things will come. businesses will close and things will change, but restaurants, they'll always be there.
Yeah.
And then this shutdown, which of course is necessary, really has brought it to a grinding halt, and people are standing there with, how am I going to feed my family? So that was the whole interest. Yeah. That was the whole drive. Fortunately, we do have restaurants that are open for delivery. We have restaurants that are open for takeout. And I really think that I hope everyone will explore, as I do on my show, is explore the restaurants in your community that are open for delivery or for takeout. That can really help. I mean, it may just keep the lights on, and it may just keep a few people employed, but it really is necessary.
Guy Fieri, thank you so much. You can donate to the Restaurant Employee Relief Fund by going to rerf.us. And just as we end the week, I'm reading about an ER doctor from New Jersey who died of the coronavirus. Our healthcare workers are on the front line, and our country is at its knees. The questions we need from the president and from his team during his daily briefing is not stuff about him. It's not about ratings. We need a timeline on testing, on uniform testing, across the board testing, a real map. And we need an idea of a timeline on a vaccine. Those are the two ways out of this. Right now, it's on us. It's on the American public to socially distance, to try and stop this, and that's not going to be enough. That does it for us this morning. Stephanie Rule picks up the coverage right now.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.